Imagine the sound. It is not silence, but a deep, humming quiet, thick with the scent of damp earth and strange, resinous blossoms. Sunlight filters down through the canopy of immense conifers and tree ferns, painting shifting patterns on the forest floor. Something rustles in the undergrowth, a sharp, quick sound that cuts through the drone of insects. It's a sound that does not belong to the wind. We see these creatures as monsters in movies, but have you ever wondered what it would truly feel like to stand in their world, to hear them breathe, to feel the ground vibrate with their approach? Welcome back to Mesozoic Chronicles. We love seeing how far these stories travel, so please let us know in the comments where you're watching from today, and what prehistoric creature has always captured your imagination. Now, let's journey back in time and uncover the story of a lost world. You are standing on the edge of a vast floodplain, 115 million years ago, in what will one day be called North America. The air is warm and heavy with humidity, a promise of seasonal rains to come. This is the early Cretaceous period, a world in transition. The lowlands are a patchwork of dense forests and open, fern-choked prairies, all crisscrossed by meandering rivers that swell and shrink with the seasons. In the distance, you can see a herd of stocky, long-tailed herbivores, Deinonychus, browsing peacefully on the low-lying vegetation. They are enormous, some stretching over 20 feet long, and for a long time, creatures like these were thought to be the main story. Slow, simple, and destined for extinction. But the rustle in the ferns nearby tells a different story. You catch a glimpse of movement. It's not a lumbering giant, but something low to the ground, moving with the fluid, purposeful grace. It is about the size of a wolf, perhaps a little larger, but it moves in a way you don't associate with a reptile. There is an unnerving intelligence in its posture, in the way its head swivels to track the faintest sounds. Its body is a paradox of delicate build and implied power, a lean frame of muscle and bone designed for speed and sudden violence. This is a new kind of hunter on the prehistoric stage. For decades, our image of the dinosaur world was dominated by sluggish, plodding titans and brutish, oversized carnivores. We saw them as evolutionary failures. But this creature, slipping silently through the shadows, is an evolutionary masterpiece. It is dynamic, sophisticated, and it carries a weapon so unique and so lethal that its discovery would single-handedly shatter our old understanding of dinosaurs and drag them, slashing and screaming, into the modern world. The creature you are watching is named Deinonychus antiropus. It is a name that sounds like a spell from an ancient time, and in a way, it is. The name is a perfect, concise description of the animal's lethality, a scientific incantation that reveals its secrets. The second part, Antiropus, speaks of the stiff, counterbalancing tail we will explore later. But the first part, Deinonychus, is the one that sends a shiver down the spine. It translates from the Greek as terrible claw. It is a name earned not by its hands, nor by its teeth, but by a single, specialized weapon on each foot. A weapon that redefined the meaning of predator. As the creature steps carefully from the shadows, you see it. On each foot, it walks on two main toes. The first toe is a small dew claw, but the second is held elegantly retracted, lifted clear of the ground. It is held back like the hammer of a gun, and at its tip is the claw. You zoom in, your focus drawn to this anatomical marvel. It is a 5-inch scythe of bone sheathed in keratin, curving wickedly to a needle-sharp point. It is not a clumsy spike, but a precision tool, perfectly shaped for its deadly purpose. A specialized joint allows it to pivot through an enormous arc of almost 180 degrees. While walking or running, powerful ligaments would hold it up and away, keeping its point pristine and sharp. But in an attack, you can almost hear the snap of those ligaments as the claw swings down and forward, driven by the full force of the leg muscles. For years, we imagined this claw being used like a knife, a grisly tool for disemboweling its victims with a single powerful kick, much like you've seen in the movies. But the truth, as revealed by careful biomechanical studies, is even more terrifying. The claw's shape is not ideal for slashing. Its curved inner edge is not a blade for zippering through thick hide. Instead, the weapon's true genius lies in its point. It was not a slasher. It was a grappling hook. Imagine Deinonychus launching itself not at a small animal, but at the flank of a Tyrannosaurus 10 times its weight. As it makes contact, those terrible claws pivot down, sinking deep into the flesh and hide. They are like a climber's ice axe, or the talons of a hawk, designed to latch on and hold fast. The prey can struggle, buck, and run, but the predator is now anchored to it, an inescapable killing machine latched to its side. This is a strategy we see in birds of prey today, a concept called Raptor prey restraint. The talons pin the victim, and then the real damage begins. With its terrible claw acting as an anchor, you realize that the rest of the creature's body is a masterclass in predatory engineering, designed to support this one audacious act of latching onto an animal far larger than itself. This was not a simple bite and slash hunter. Every part of its anatomy worked in concert. If you could peer inside its bones, you would see that they are hollow, reinforced with thin, internal struts. This is a classic feature of modern birds, a design that provides immense strength without the burden of weight. This animal was not built to be heavy. It was built to be a fast, feather-light killer, capable of explosive bursts of speed and incredible leaps. You see this design for agility reflected in its powerful forelimbs. Unlike the famously small arms of the later tyrannosaurs, the arms of Deinonychus were long and formidable. They ended in a pair of three-fingered hands, each equipped with its own set of sharp, curving claws. These were not just for slashing, they were for seizing. The wrist joint was remarkably flexible, allowing the hands to turn inwards and grasp, much like your own. As the foot claw pinned the prey, you can picture these powerful arms wrapping around the victim, the fingers digging in, holding on tight against the violent thrashing, pulling its body in close for the final act. This was a creature that could hug its prey to death. But even this combination of claw and hand required a secret weapon to be truly effective, something to provide the stability needed for such a dynamic, high-risk attack. That secret was its tail. This brings us to the second half of its name, Antiropus, meaning counterbalancing. When paleontologists first assembled its skeleton, they found the tail was unlike any other. Running along the vertebrae was a dense sheath of interwoven bony rods, making the entire tail, from its midsection to the tip, almost completely rigid. It was not a flexible, whipping tail like a lizard's. It was a stiff, rod-like structure. However, at its base, where it connected to the hips, it was incredibly mobile. You have to imagine it functioning like the balancing pole of a tightrope walker. As Deinonychus ran at high speed, it could swing this rigid tail from side to side, allowing it to make hairpin turns without losing its footing. And as it leaped through the air toward its target, the tail would act as a dynamic rudder, ensuring it landed with perfect, lethal precision. This was the key that unlocked its entire hunting style, a biological stabilizer that made its high-flying acrobatics possible. For millions of years, this perfect killing machine vanished from the world, leaving behind nothing but scattered, mineralized bones buried under tons of rock. Its story was lost to time, waiting for a new kind of intelligence to piece it back together. Now, you must jump forward in time, from the humid forests of the Cretaceous to the arid, sun-baked badlands of Montana in the summer of 1964. The air is dry and dusty, and the silence is broken only by the wind and the gentle tapping of a geologist's hammer against rock. An expedition, led by a sharp-eyed paleontologist from Yale University, is scouring these hills, hunting for clues to an ancient ecosystem. For days, the finds are minor. Then, a member of the team spots something small and dark, weathering out of a hillside. It is a single, lethally curved claw. At the time, the world of paleontology was a quiet place. The prevailing view, held for over a century, was that dinosaurs were colossal failures. They were seen as sluggish, dim-witted, cold-blooded reptiles that had rightfully been outcompeted by the smarter, faster mammals. They were evolutionary dead ends, interesting for their size, but ultimately an inferior form of life. You can feel this context hanging in the air as the team carefully excavates around that first claw, uncovering more of the skeleton. In the lab, months later, you watch as the plaster jackets are painstakingly opened. As the bones are cleaned and laid out, a creature emerges that simply does not fit the old narrative. The skeleton is delicate and bird-like. The legs are long and slender, built for running, not plodding. The hands are large and capable of grasping. The tail is a marvel of biological engineering, a dynamic stabilizer. And then there is the terrible claw, a weapon that speaks not of slow ambush, but of active, aggressive, and astonishingly athletic predation. This fossil was a declaration of war against the old ideas. It was the physical evidence that something was fundamentally wrong with our understanding of dinosaurs. This single discovery became the spark that ignited what we now call the dinosaur renaissance. It forced a generation of scientists to ask revolutionary questions. What if dinosaurs weren't cold-blooded? What if they had complex social behaviors? What if they were the most successful, sophisticated animals of their time? As the lead paleontologist studied the skeleton, he saw an even deeper connection, a startling similarity to the fossil of the earliest known bird, Archaeopteryx. Deinonychus didn't just prove that dinosaurs could be fast and dynamic. It provided the strongest link yet that birds themselves are the living descendants of dinosaurs. The skeletal evidence you've just seen, connecting this incredible creature to the ancestry of birds, was only the beginning of the revolution. For many years after its discovery, even as our understanding of its behavior grew more sophisticated, our image of its appearance remained stuck in the past. You have to erase the picture of a green, scaly-skinned reptile that has been cemented in our minds by decades of popular culture. That image is now as outdated and scientifically inaccurate as a T-Rex dragging its tail on the ground. The reality is far more surprising and infinitely more spectacular. The next chapter in this animal's story was not written in the Badlands of Montana, but in the fine-grained lakebed sediments of China. Beginning in the 1990s, a series of astonishing fossil discoveries from sites like Liaoning, provided an unprecedented window into the world of feathered dinosaurs. Paleontologists unearthed dozens of species, including the closest relatives of Deinonychus, other dromaeosaurs like Microraptor and Sinornithosaurus, preserved in such exquisite detail that their full coat of feathers was clearly visible. While we have yet to find a Deinonychus skeleton with the same perfect preservation, the evidence from its family is overwhelming. The final, irrefutable proof came from a fossil of its more famous cousin, Velociraptor. Scientists found a series of small bumps running along its forearm bone, the ulna. These are quill knobs, the direct attachment points for the ligaments of large wing-like feathers. You can see these exact same features on the skeleton of a modern eagle. The conclusion is inescapable. Deinonychus was not a scaly lizard. It was covered in feathers. Now, you must picture it again, standing in that Cretaceous forest. But this time, you see it as it truly was. Its body is covered in a thick, shaggy coat of insulating feathers, perhaps striped or spotted for camouflage among the ferns. Its long arms are not bare, but form a pair of broad wings, with long, veined feathers arranged much like those of a modern bird. Its stiff tail is not a naked rod, but likely ends in a complex fan of feathers, used for display and balance. This was not a monster. This was a magnificent, 10-foot-long, flightless predatory bird. The feathers were not just for show. The downy coat would have been essential for regulating the temperature of a warm-blooded, active animal. The larger feathers on the arms and tail, while useless for flight in an animal this large, would have been vital for courtship displays, for brooding its eggs, and critically, for hunting. Imagine it again, leaping onto the back of its prey, its arm wings flapping not for lift, but for stability and control, as it struggles to maintain its balance on a much larger, dying animal. Now you see this feathered, agile, and terrifyingly well-armed creature in your mind's eye. But one tantalizing question remains. A question sparked by the very fossil site that first brought Deinonychus to light. Did this intelligent predator hunt alone, relying on its own speed and weaponry? Or did it possess an even more formidable advantage, the power of a coordinated pack? The evidence that gave birth to this idea is as dramatic as any scene from a film. You must go back to that dig site in Montana. The paleontologists didn't just find the bones of a single Deinonychus. Over the course of their excavations, they found the remains of at least 4 of them, all mingled with the skeleton of a single, massive herbivore, Tenontosaurus. The image this fossil assemblage paints is instantly compelling. It's a snapshot of a life-and-death struggle frozen in stone. You see a 10-ton herbivore, powerful and desperate, surrounded by a group of smaller, faster predators. It's easy to imagine a coordinated attack, a pack of these Cretaceous wolves working together, using their intelligence and numbers to harass, exhaust, and finally overwhelm an animal that no single one of them could kill alone. This single fossil find gave rise to the idea of pack-hunting raptors, a concept that would forever define them in the popular imagination. It suggested a level of social complexity and cooperative behavior that was once thought impossible for dinosaurs, aligning them more with intelligent mammalian predators than with solitary reptiles. But as compelling as that image is, you must look at it with a scientist's skeptical eye. Is a coordinated pack hunt the only explanation for these fossils? Modern animal behavior gives us other possibilities. Think of Komodo dragons. They are not cooperative pack hunters, but many solitary individuals will often converge on a large carcass. The result is a chaotic, violent feeding frenzy, where the dragons fight aggressively with each other over the meal, and sometimes even kill and cannibalize one another. Perhaps the Montana fossil site doesn't show a team of hunters, but a deadly dispute over a dead or dying Tyrannosaurus. It is also possible that the fossils accumulated over a longer period. A cornered and wounded Tyrannosaurus might have been attacked by a series of individual predators over hours or even days, killing each of its attackers before finally dying itself. The truth remains buried in ambiguity. The evidence is tantalizing, but it is not definitive. Whether they were a disciplined pack or a chaotic mob, the scene still speaks to the incredible ferocity and audacity of this remarkable dinosaur. That powerful image, whether of a coordinated pack or a chaotic mob, has become the definitive portrait of the raptor in our collective consciousness. But that portrait, and indeed the very word raptor as we know it, owes its existence to one of the biggest cases of mistaken identity in the history of popular science. You almost certainly know this animal, but you know it by a different name. You remember the scene. The tapping of a claw on the steel floor of a kitchen, the breath fogging the glass of a door window. The creature that terrified a generation in the film Jurassic Park was called Velociraptor. But the animal you were watching was, in everything but name, a Deinonychus. This is not a mistake on the part of the filmmakers, but a fascinating quirk of scientific timing and branding. The author of the novel, Michael Crichton, was doing his research in the 1980s. At that time, a prominent paleontologist had published a book in which he proposed lumping several Dromaeosaur species, including Deinonychus, into the genus Velociraptor. While this classification was not widely accepted and was later abandoned, Crichton saw the name Velociraptor, meaning swift Caesar, and knew it was far more menacing and marketable than Deinonychus. He took the name of one animal and applied it to the body of another. The real Velociraptor mongoliensis was a much smaller creature, about the size of a turkey, a formidable predator in its own right, but not the 6-foot-tall, human-sized terror you see on screen. That creature, from its size and power to the theory of its pack-hunting intelligence, was inspired almost entirely by Deinonychus. While it may be scientifically frustrating, you cannot overstate the film's importance. It took the core ideas of the dinosaur renaissance, the revolution that Deinonychus itself had started, and brought them to life for a global audience. The dusty concepts of fast, warm-blooded, intelligent, bird-like dinosaurs were suddenly real, visceral, and terrifying. Deinonychus was the quiet academic spark. Jurassic Park was the cultural wildfire that followed. It made an entire generation look at dinosaurs not as ancient lizards, but as living, breathing, awe-inspiring animals. It is the strange and beautiful legacy of Deinonychus, a creature that is simultaneously one of the most important figures in the history of paleontology and the greatest uncredited movie star of all time. The story of Deinonychus is a perfect reminder of how science is a living, breathing process, where a single discovery can echo for decades, changing not just textbooks, but our entire perception of the past. From a few scattered bones in a sun-scorched hillside, a new vision of the dinosaur world was born. One filled not with sluggish monsters, but with dynamic, sophisticated, and magnificent animals that were more successful and more bird-like than anyone had ever dared to imagine. As you look out your window today, at the birds that fill our modern skies, you are seeing the legacy of their ancient family. The journey into these lost worlds is never truly over. Every fossil is a word, every skeleton a sentence, in an epic story that is still being written, with untold wonders still buried beneath our feet, waiting for their turn to come into the light and change everything once more.